Hi, it's Darcy Loma, and I'm here today with Jill Mueller. Happy Thursday. We are together trying out some new technology for our Thoughtfully Fit Thursdays that we're really excited about. Today, we're going live and broadcasting to test it out on Facebook. We have applied to be one of the pilot people to be able to go live on LinkedIn. So stay tuned. We're hoping that we get that approved, that we can start to be a little bit more, have more of an outreach and more of a reach with our Thoughtfully Fit Thursdays. And Jill and I today are looking at and exploring what does a great workplace look like for you. And so as we are talking, you can make some comments and put in there, what does a great workplace look like for you? And we're talking about this because Madison Magazine just recently came out with their best places to work. And we are thrilled to honor and congratulate all of the best places to work. And in particular, we want to do a quick shout out to the companies that we have partnered with in the last maybe 10 years to support them. So WIDEN Enterprises, Tri-North Builders, Artisan Dental, Baker Tilly, the QTI Group, and WEA Member Benefits. So a special shout out to all of you, and it's been absolutely wonderful partnering with you, focusing on how to create a high-performing organization and how to create high-performing teams. And so, Jill, if you wanted to just share a little bit about what did the article highlight as some of the secrets to these companies being the best places to work and being able to retain the top talent?
Yeah, what I thought was really great about the article is they didn't just list the companies, they then went and talked to the companies in terms of what secrets do you have for keeping your top talent. So I thought it was really interesting to see what some of them said, because I think you might notice some things as well, Darcy. So one of the companies said that talented people are drawn to a workplace where employees are motivated, they're encouraged to grow and progress in their careers. So the company is recognizing it. The employees are there for their own individual benefit as well as to benefit the company. Another company said, we stress a team atmosphere where everybody is welcome and encouraged to give their feedback and their opinions. We encourage employees to make their own decisions. No need to run decisions up the chain because that delays momentum. And I thought that was another good example where not only is it a benefit for the employee to feel empowered, but also it's a benefit for the organization that decisions get made and leaders aren't getting bogged down.
You know, and if I can jump in here, Jill,
yeah,
I'm really impressed with at WIDEN. Are you hearing an echo or no?
I'm good. I'm not.
Okay, all right, perfect. At WIDEN Enterprises is they look at how to engage the employees, and they talk about power to the edge and how to give employees the opportunity and the sort of permission to make decisions, to be empowered. And I think that's a perfect example of this in playing out in real life in one of the companies we've worked with.
Absolutely. Another example, we want every employee to feel like they have a voice, where they are encouraged to share ideas and share their thoughts. And that's one that I see come up so often, where employees appreciate feeling safe and being able to share what thoughts that they have. Another company said they have a strong company purpose, core values to give their employees direction and success. And I think the most common theme that looking through this article was that employees are engaged. That not only does the company say they want their employees to be engaged, but that companies are in fact engaged. So I'm curious, Darcy, what are you noticing as you hear about these themes here?
There's a lot of, so when Jill and I in our company, we go out and really work with companies on creating a high performing culture and strong leaders and strong teams. And one of the things that we look at is the characteristics of the highest performing team. There's really 5. And so I thought we just share what those characteristics are, that when we're working with companies, we help them to both self-assess, right? So how are we doing? And then identify where are there gaps and where are there places that we might be able to improve in each of these 5 areas. And so that first one is connection. And it's demonstrated by trust. And Patrick Lencioni talks about in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, like the number one dysfunction of a team is a lack of trust. And the way that you build trust is you allow members to get to know each other and to have a connection and to be vulnerable. And so where these workplaces have the strongest performing teams, they have a common purpose and vision, and they really encourage safety and camaraderie. And I think that's one of the things that came up in the results that you were sharing. And as we're going through, and I'll let you share the second one, I'm just going to put up a question for people to respond to. What's the best thing about your workplace? So feel free to put some comments, and after we'll go in and respond, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, Darcy, I just wanted to add one more thing to that connection and trust element. I almost feel like without that one, nothing else matters. That as we move on to these other characteristics, without that trust, without being able to say, I disagree, without being able to say, I have an idea, everything else almost doesn't matter. That trust, as Lencioni said too, it's the foundation, it's the base. And that's where so much starts from.
And I'll highlight a company that we worked with this summer who contacted us first to come in, and they wanted us to facilitate their 2-day strategic planning retreat. And they said, for some reason, we just kind of can't get our strategy off the ground. And as we always do an assessment beforehand, an organizational assessment. And as we were interviewing the individual members of the executive leadership team, we found that, and there's a whole bunch of articles out there you can Google saying culture eats strategy for lunch. We found that part of the reason the strategy wasn't working is because the culture was such that the executive leadership team members didn't trust each other. And so there was all this, sort of conflict and vying for power going on, and really toxic patterns that we're seeing that we first dealt with and then went to the strategy, and it made all the difference. We really had to focus on that connection before going into the strategy.
Absolutely. And that leads into the next characteristic of communication. And this typically is demonstrated by healthy conflicts. And Darcy, this is one of the things that you taught me, that I always thought the goal was to eliminate conflicts, that the best teams are just good and happy and everything, whether it's teams or relationships, whatever it is, that things just always are on an even keel. And it's the opposite, that the best teams, I hear you say this all the time, that the best teams have conflict, but it's healthy conflict. And based on that trust, based on that safety, people feel comfortable saying, I disagree. I have a different idea. Can we talk about this? You hurt my feelings. I'm disappointed. And all of that can take a lot of work to get through, but without that, teams are just sort of flat.
Well, also, you're spot on. And there's sort of conflict in terms of personality conflicts, and, I felt stepped over. I feel like you're not hearing me. But then there's also conflict about the strategy, about the goals, about the vision. What are we doing? What decisions are we making? How are we prioritizing? And if you don't have a culture in your workplace that invites different opinions and invites healthy conflict and disagreement, you're not going to be able to get the results that you could otherwise get if you're hearing and making a safe place for all the voices to be heard. And so I think that's also, and so we talk a lot about how do you debate internally and then defend externally.
Mm-hmm. And
I
feel like that could be a topic all on its own. But
yeah, exactly. It is. And that brings us to the third characteristic, and that is commitment. So when you debate internally and then a decision is made, and then you defend externally, there's going to be some people who didn't agree with the decision that was made. But the strongest teams and the highest performing workplaces indeed make decisions, and then people commit. And it's demonstrated by accountability, and people don't then go out and try to sabotage because it was different than what they thought. There is a level of commitment to whatever that decision was that was made. And a buy-in, and people need to weigh in order to buy in. And that debate and that conflict is part of them being able to weigh in, so that ultimately whatever decision is made, they can buy in.
So I just want to say that I hadn't heard that before. You got to weigh in order to buy in.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So the next characteristic then is collaboration. And this is demonstrated by synergy and teams that work together and create that culture of discussion and openness and finding ways to work together. And I think the other thing that team members do here, which doesn't always come naturally with teams, is they leverage each other's differences. So the other thing, Darcy, that you've taught me is the strongest teams have the most amount of differences. They have people with different styles, with different energies, with different ways to contribute to the team. And instead of seeing that as a place of friction or tension, the highest performing teams figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, and so instead of tolerating the differences, or maybe the first step might be being annoyed and having a disagreement about the differences, and then you go to tolerating the differences. The strongest workplaces actually not only tolerate, they appreciate and welcome and maximize and leverage people's differences.
Yeah. And I'll speak from personal experiences. I've worked in places in the past where it feels like, who's going to win this one? Who's going to win this argument? Okay, I'm going to let you win this one, knowing that I'm going to win a next one. And it's kind of exhausting. Yeah. And it's also limiting. And compared to the workplaces that I've worked in that have more of okay, let's hear from you, and let's find a solution to the problem as opposed to picking the winner, I think it makes all the difference.
It does. And that leads us to the last one, which is celebration. And this is one that I am not very good at. And I think a lot of the workplaces that we go to, it's like, okay, we accomplished that. What's next?
We don't have time to celebrate. What are you talking about? Why is that important?
Exactly. And it's absolutely essential in terms of creating the space to acknowledge and recognize key milestones, not only celebrating when something good happens at the end of the process, but milestones along the way. So for instance, on our team, we have been working hard for years. I mean, probably 3 years in writing the Thoughtfully Fit book. And October 1st is our deadline to have the first full version of the manuscript done. And so one of the things that we talked about in our regular Monday meeting is the need to celebrate. And I think you even brought that up, Jill, and said, how are we going to celebrate? And Liza and I are looking at each other going like, we're going to start pitching it to publishers. We're going to get it to editors. We're going to start to, and it's like, oh, you're right.
It's huge. There's, at least an acknowledgement, right? That this work has done and you worked so hard. And I think the other part of that is not just acknowledging and giving the pat on the back. If that feels too touchy-feely, that's not the only reason. There's value in talking about, okay, we've been working on this. We succeeded. What did we do to get us to this place? What do we want to learn from this that we want to take into the next place? What didn't quite work so well that we want to make sure we don't do the next time? So it's not just to acknowledge and to celebrate and find a reason to go out of the office and do something, but it's also to lock in that learning. Yeah. And that's going to be only more valuable for the next project, for the next meeting.
Right. How do you replicate it?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a sort of building positivity in the culture. So that celebration might be going out of the office and doing something. We had a big celebration this summer where we all went to Jackson Hole, and that was phenomenal. But it's also little celebrations and acknowledgments and saying, okay, we're going to bring in bagels to this meeting today and just highlight the good work we're doing. It doesn't need to be big. Mm-hmm. And so the last question we have as we're rounding out and closing out our Thoughtfully Fit Thursday is just to share what's the best place that you've ever worked, and maybe you want to celebrate and acknowledge that workplace and what made it the best place to work. And we invite you to share this video. If there's somebody that you have worked with and acknowledge them as a way, or if you think somebody might enjoy hearing about the characteristics of high-performing workplaces, we invite you to share it with them, because it is truly our mission to create high-performing people and teams. And so it's really fun to be able to honor today the best places to work that Madison Magazine had shared.
And I think, Darcy, you raise a really good question in terms of what makes the best workplace for you. What was the best workplace that you had? Sometimes these lists remind me of the best colleges in the country. And so much of the things with these lists, it's personal to you, right? The best college might not be the best place for your student or for you as a student. And so really taking the time to pause and think about, what's the best type of workplace for me? What's the environment where I thrive in? And then take the action to make that a reality, whether it's in the place that you're currently at or not. But there are steps that you can take and conversations to be had. Because I think if there's anything that we've learned over doing this work with different clients is you just can't snap your fingers and create this type of environment or create this best workplace. They are developed. They are developed through the hard conversations, through the fun conversations of what type of atmosphere do we want to create. Best places just don't happen. Best relationships, best teams just don't happen. They are created, and that's the fun part.
It is, and that reminds me that, you know, when we're talking about being thoughtfully fit and how to be thoughtful in every situation, it takes training, it takes work, and strong workplaces are made up of employees who are thoughtfully fit, who are engaged, who are have a self-awareness, who pause and think in the moment of what I need to contribute and how I want to show up, and then act from that place. And it does. It takes training and it takes practice.
Yeah.
So if you are at a company that you want to improve your workplace culture, reach out to us. We work with companies all the time, and it's fun. I mean, the process is we don't have fun, Jill.
It is fun, and I think there's sometimes a fear of like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. I'd rather just have everything be my new favorite four-letter word, fine, right? And there's so much cool stuff on the other side of fine. And that's, I think, is what's really fun. And once people get there, they love it. And that's what's really fun to see.
Yeah, and you make a good point that it's so much more than I don't want to rock the boat. It's also, there might be some of you sitting out there being like, I don't want to expose our vulnerabilities. Like, I don't think we don't have those 5 characteristics. And that's pretty scary to admit. And so, like, the cool thing is there's no judgment. I mean, the first part of creating a high-performing workplace is creating awareness around where are your strengths, because there clearly are, and then where are the challenges or obstacles that are getting in the way. And that process itself is very telling. And then we can identify what things are going to help you. And so if you're stuck, that's what we do. That's what I've been studying for 25 years now and love to do. So reach out to us. And as always, thank you for joining us for this Thoughtfully Fit Thursday. The best compliment you can give is to give us a thumbs up and to like our page and to share it with others. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.